Hi family, welcome back to ladensercrochets. If you're new to the channel, you're welcome. Kindly subscribe and join the family. In this tutorial, we're making a granny square patchwork sweater that is hooded. I intended to do some pockets, that is a pocket at the front part of the sweater, but I haven't done that yet. In this video, I'll be illustrating to you how to join the crochet granny squares. We've already done a tutorial for the granny square, so I'm going to leave a link in the description box. So click on it and watch how to make the granny square. Then from this point on, we're going to be connecting the squares to get the sweater. If you like the video, kindly don't forget to leave a like, a comment, and share. If you're not subscribed, subscribe, and let's get into the tutorial. You have your squares ready and it's time to join them. And this is how I'm going to join them, starting with this shade. Then I'm going to get 2 squares of the next shade. I'll place one on one side of the white, and you want to make sure that you're placing your squares on the wrong side. Then I'm going to get my darning needle and some yarn. You want to make sure that the yarns that you're using are one of the shades that you're connecting. So I'll put the yarn through and cut it off to the length that I want. And I'm going to start at the corners. So insert your darning needle on one square, on the corner of one square and the corner of the other square. And then at that point, I'm going to tie a tight knot. This is my joining technique. You can join using the needle, or you can use the hook and use single crochets, or the hook and slip stitches. The technique that you're going to choose is completely up to you. So I'm going to go back into the corner and I'll do some sewing right there. So I'll connect the 2 corners together, go into the first stitch on one side and the first stitch on the other side, connect the 2 stitches. Like I mentioned, my joining technique, this is my joining technique. If you have a better one, use that one. Then I'll go on to the next stitch and the second stitch on the other side and sew them together. Then get into the third stitches, on the one on one side and one on the other side, and sew them together into the 4th stitches, then onto the 5th. And you want to make sure that you're aligning your stitches correctly, and then you're going to join the corresponding stitches one by one until you get to the next corner. So I'll just keep going with the joining and I'll meet you at the corner. Once we get to the corner, we're going to work into it. And I noticed that as I move along, I need to put a knot every time I get to the corner. As I was beginning, I did not do that. There was no harm in that, but then having a knot at that corner makes the work more secure. So I'm going to get a second square in the same shade that I've just connected, and I'm going to go into the corner and the corner of the first square that I connected. Like I mentioned, it's better if you put a knot at this point. Then I'm going to go into the first double crochet on each of the 2 squares and connect them. And then I'm just going to continue to the corner, attaching the corresponding stitches. So just keep going like this until you get to the next corner. When we get to the corner, we're going to work a stitch into those 2 corners, and this is what we have. And then you want to secure that part by putting a knot make sure that your knot is tight, and we're going to weave in the end that has remained on the side that has the shade that we were using. So just go into those stitches on that square, on that very first square, and weave in that end. So right here I'm just weaving in the end, making sure that it's completely inside the stitches and not visible on either of the sides. And once you're satisfied that your end is well hidden, just get the pair of scissors and cut it off. So right there I've cut off my end, and this is what we have. This is the right side of our work, and the side that we were working on was our wrong side. So now we go on connecting the next squares, and this is how you're going to go about it. I'm just going to get the darker shade, and I'll place my squares like so. So let me just create some space right here. So I'm getting the first square, attaching it on the first row, the second square goes to the second row, and the third square will go onto the third row. This is how the squares will be. So I'll get the darning needle and this jungle green shade or the dark shade, put the yarn through the darning needle and get some yarn that will be able to connect the 3 squares. We're going to begin from the bottom right here in one of the corners and the corner of the previous shade, and at that point we're going to start with a tight knot. So I'm just going to tie 2 knots. That's the first one and the second one, and then I'll start connecting from the first double crochet on one side and the first double crochet on the other side, and keep going till I get to the next corner of the 2 squares. So now just keep going with the sewing. I'll meet you at that corner. I'm at the corner and I'm just joining those corner stitches just like that, and we're done with that square. So we're going to get the next one and place it right there. Then we're going to join on 2 sides, on the 2 edges. As you can see, we are joining on the second square on this side, the second square that is on the first row, and the square that is on the second row. So just begin with the corner stitch of the 3 squares as you've seen. I hope you can see this. I don't really need to explain. You can just watch and learn. So the first double crochet, and then we move to the second double crochet, the third, then the fourth double crochets. Just make sure that your stitches are aligned and work all the way to the corner. I'll meet you at that second corner and show you how to turn to the other side. At the corner, just join the 2 stitches, the 2 corner stitches like that. Then we're going to turn to the corner onto this first square and that square that we've just connected, and join the 2 corners. Make sure that that place is secure. I would advise that you do a knot. Then on to the next square, just like that. And then we're going to join on those 2 edges to the next corner. So let me go on and join the 2 edges, beginning with the first double crochet and the first double crochet on the other side, and I'll meet you at the corner. I'm headed to the corner, and right there I'll just do the connection, and this is what we have so far. The next thing to do is get the third square and connect it onto the first row. Just make sure that you're making the connections on the wrong side. So I'm just going to turn my work like this, go into that square and the square that I'm connecting, and like I mentioned, make sure that you do a knot if you're connecting with the darning needle. Then just go onto the stitches until you get to the corner. I'll meet you at the corner, and at that point we'll be done attaching the dark shade of green, and we're going to move on to the next shade. We're going to join the corners and then work a knot at that corner. Make sure that you place the knot, make sure it's tight, and then weave in the end onto that square. Once you're satisfied that the end is well hidden, just cut off the yarn. And this is what we have so far. We have the first row complete because we want rows of 3 squares. Then the second row has 2 and the third has 1. So we're going to get the white shade, the cream white, and then we're going to have 1 on the second row, 1 on the third row. So as you can see, we are creating a pattern, a diagonal pattern, but you can attach the squares however you wish. It doesn't have to be the way I'm connecting them. So now I'm just going to connect these 2 squares onto the second row and the third row. So I'll get the yarn and start connecting. At the end, we do the knot and then we're going to weave in that end and then cut it off. So right there, just weave it in, cut it off, and at this point, we are done. We are done with connecting that shade. The next thing that we're going to do, as you can see, we have 2 rows complete. We're just going to complete the third row by attaching a square right there. So I'll just get my darning needle and the yarn, then connect that square. By now you already know how to do the connection, so I'll just speed up this process and meet you at the end. After joining 3 squares in the 3 rows, this is what we have, and so far I've connected a total of 9 squares, as you can see, and I'm just going to measure these, and this is going to be one of the panels, either the front or the back panel. The width is 21, the length is 21. It's a square, so it's going to have the same length on either of the sides. And this is the right side of my work. If you feel like this joining is not doing it for you, like I advised earlier, use the joining that works for you. So I'm going to join other squares like these ones for the other panel. We need to have a front and a back panel, and we're going to connect the squares the same exact way. So let me do that off camera, then come back and show you how to connect the two panels. Right here I have my two panels ready. As you can see, they are completely the same, and now we're going to join them on the shoulder part. But to do that, we need to do an extension on the two squares, and we're going to start with an extension on the back panel. I'm going to be doing the extension with the cream white, so just grab that yarn and we're going to connect it at the top. Start with a slip knot, and then we're going to get one of the corners of the squares and connect the yarn right there with a slip stitch. So just connect the yarn, and once we've connected, we're going to chain 3, and the chain 3 will act as our first double crochet. Then we're going to work a double crochet onto the first double crochet, a double crochet on the second double crochet, onto the third double crochet, place a double crochet, and we're going to place one double crochet into each of the stitches till we get to the corner. When we get to the corner, we're going to skip one of them and work into the next one. So in those two corners of the squares, you just need to make sure that you're just working in one of them. Then we're going to continue with one double crochet onto each of the double crochets into on the second square. That is, when we get to the corner, we only place one stitch in the corners, then continue with one double crochet until we get to the end. At the corner, we skip one of them, and then we continue with one double crochet onto the third square, one double crochet into each of the stitches in the third square, and I'll meet you at the end. At the end, we're going to place our last double crochet into the corner, and that is our first row of extension. We're going to chain 3 and turn to begin row 2, and then that will be our first double crochet. So we begin into the second double crochet, we place a double crochet into it, and in row 2 we're just going to place one double crochet into each of the stitches until we get to the end. So just go on, work one double crochet into each of the previous double crochets, and I'll meet you at the end of row 2. I'm coming to the end, and in the very last stitch we're going to work onto the chain 3. So make sure you don't miss that stitch. Onto the chain 3 we place our last double crochet, and we're done with row 2. Chain 3 and turn to begin row 3, and row 3 is going to be the same as row 2. Just place a double crochet into the second stitch, a double crochet into the third stitch, and continue placing 1 double crochet into each of the stitches. So I'm going to work row 3 and row 4, which are a repeat of row 2. So that means row 3 and 4 are worked the same way we've worked row 2. I'll just go on work the 3rd row and the 4th row, then I'll be back. I'm coming to the end of row 4, and I just want to make sure that I've placed a double crochet into each of the double crochets. At the end, the double crochet goes onto the chain 3. Chain 1 and cut off the yarn. At that point, pull through and fasten. And we are done with the back panel extension on the top. So then we're going to get the other panel and we're going to attach an extension on the top. Now the extension for the front panel is different, so let's do that. I'll get my hook and the yarn and start with a slip knot. Then we're going to get one of the corners, connect, make sure that you're working on the wrong side, connect with a slip stitch and chain 3, which is our first double crochet. Work a double crochet into the first double crochet, then 1 double crochet into each of the stitches in that first square. So just work till you get to the corner of the first square. Our last stitch on that row will be on the double crochet just before the corner, and then we're going to chain 3 and turn to begin our row 2. Begin it into the second double crochet and then place 1 double crochet into each of the stitches, and make sure that when you get to the end you work on top of the chain 3, which was our first double crochet. So we're going to repeat these rows just like we did with the back panel. We're going to work row 2, 3 and 4. So let me work the 3 rows, then come back once they are done. I'm done with the 4 rows, and I'll just cut off the yarn, leaving a long tail that we're going to use to attach the shoulders. Make sure that you chain 1 at the end, then pull your yarn through. So we're going to go on to the square on the opposite side. We're going to connect the yarn, starting with a slip knot. So just do your slip knot, and we're going to connect the yarn on the first double crochet after the corner of that last square. Then we're going to chain 3 and we'll place 1 double crochet into each of the stitches until we get to the corner. When we get to the corner, we're going to place a double crochet there, then work a total of 4 rows. So let me go on, work the 4 rows and then get back. I'm at the end of that 4th row, just working the last 2 double crochets and the last double crochet onto the chain 3, then chain 1, leave a long end for attaching the shoulders and cut off the yarn. Then we're just going to pull the yarn through and fasten. So now we have the extension on the front panel and we are ready to attach the 2 panels now. So just get your back panel. When you get the back panel, you want to place it in such a way that the right side is on the top. So this is the right side and this is the wrong side. Then we're going to get the front panel and we want to make sure that the part on top is the wrong side, such that the 2 right sides of the 2 panels are facing each other. And now we're going to get the darning needle and we're going to connect the 2 panels at the top stitch by stitch. So put the yarn through and begin with the first stitch, which is the first double crochet, and the chain 3 on the other side, and start sewing. So you need to connect till you get to the the last double crochet of the front panel. So I'll just go back into those first 2 stitches just to secure the yarn, and I'll start sewing the second double crochet and the second double crochet together. Then we have the third double crochet and the third double crochet. Sew them together and keep going. I'll meet you once I get to the last double crochet of the front panel. At the end, we're going to join the chain 3 with the double crochet on the other side, and then create a knot at that point. Then we're going to weave in that end that has remained. So just get any row that is close right there and just go into it, hide the stitches, hide the end inside the stitches. Just make sure that it's not visible on either of the sides. So right here, just going through those stitches, then I'll pull through, and now my end is hidden, so I'll cut off the yarn, and we are done with that shoulder part on one side. So we're going to go on to the other side, and to do that, because the end is on this side, we need to count the stitches. So I'll count the number of stitches on this panel on top, then I'll go to the panel below and count the same number of stitches starting from the corner. So I'll get my darning needle and put the yarn through. Then after that, go into the first double crochet, then count the same number of stitches that you've counted: 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23, 24 actually. So go into that 24th stitch and make sure that you go back into those 2 stitches again. Then after that, we have 23 double crochets remaining on the other side, and we're going to connect those stitches with the darning needle by sewing. At the end, we're just going to connect the last stitches. Then we're going to do a knot into those 2 last stitches and fasten, then weave in that end that has remained. So just go on with the end, and after that we're going to cut off the extra yarn. Now this is what we have after joining the 2 shoulders, and that's the neckline, and we are ready to attach the hood. So now I'm just going to get the squares that are going to go to the hood, and for the hood part of the sweater, I've done an extra row. Like I was doing 6 rows, but then I did an extra row. Like you can see, these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 rows. and the rows that I've used in the main cardigan, or in the main sweater, it's not a cardigan, are 6. So when you're working the hood, make sure that you work an extra row for your squares, and they are going to be a total of 6 squares. So we're going to have 2 rows of each 3 squares, and we're just going to connect them the same way we've connected the back and front panels. I don't really need to show you this, so I'll go on, connect my squares off camera, and once they are ready, or once I'm ready with the connection of the squares, I'll come back and show you how to connect the hood to the main sweater. So right here, I'm just arranging my squares in the right way, or in the way that I want them to be, and then after that I'll connect them. So let me connect and come back. I have my hood panel connected right here, and we're just going to fold it like this. Make sure that you're folding on the wrong side, and after folding it, we're going to connect on this part using the darning needle, of course. So I'll just get my needle and some yarn, cut the yarn to the required length, and then I'll use the yarn to connect onto the side of the hood, starting from the corner. You already know how to connect. Make sure that when you're connecting, you're using a color that is the same as the squares that you're joining. So I'm just tying up the knot, then I'll start working the double crochets together, sewing them together, making sure that you're aligning your work correctly. I'll work till I get to the next corner, and then I'll change the color to jungle green, because towards the end we have jungle green right there. Once you're done connecting and weaving in the ends, you're just going to turn your hood to the right side. So I'll just turn it to the right side. We want to, when we are attaching it to the sweater, we do this from the right side. So right there we have our hood. This is how it's going to look like once it's attached. So let me get the main part of the sweater, and then I'll attach the hood right there. So to do that, you need to identify the middle part of the hood. I do that by folding it into 2 equal parts like this. You can do that by counting the stitches. So we're getting the middle stitch of the square that is at the center, and place a stitch marker into it, and then spread it out like this. Then we're going to count the stitches at the back part of the back panel. So I'm just counting a stitch from either side, so that in the middle I'll end up with the middle stitch. So let me just keep going until I get to the stitch at the center at the back part. So when you get to that stitch, connect it with the middle part of the hood like that. Then we're going to get the middle part of the square at the front, just like we did at the back. Count a stitch from either of the sides of the squares until you get to the center. When you get to the center, you're going to mark that stitch. So get a stitch marker and mark. So now at that stitch, this is where we're going to connect the corner. I'm moving a stitch backwards, so I get that corner of the hood and connect it. Then the other corner will be a stitch next to this one at the front. So just a stitch next to the other stitch we need to mark. But then it may be a bit difficult to connect when I've attached both sides. So I'll work on one end, then I'll come back. I'll mark the other side and then join. So you just want to get the corners of your sweater and align your stitches, then mark specific areas that will ensure that our stitches on the hood are well aligned. So this is what I'm doing. Just watch what I'm doing and do exactly that. So this is the last point that I'm going to mark. I'm just going to get the stitch marker and mark it. So just mark. And now we're going to start connecting with the darning needle from that very first stitch marker. So put your darning needle through and we're going to create a knot at that point. And we're going to connect till we get to the middle of the hood. As you can see, I'm doing the connection from the wrong side. So I'm holding my sweater and the hood on the right side, but when I'm connecting, I'll make sure that I work from the wrong side like this. So we're just going to align our stitches and then we just sew. At this point, we are halfway through the joining of the hood, as you can see. And now that we're done with the first half, we're just going to turn to the other half and mark. So that corner, we bring it to the middle, to that front part. The stitch next to the first one that we started with, right there. So just mark and turn your work on the inside like this. Then we're going to get the corners and mark them. I'm just going to move this stitch marker to a corner somewhere right there. You just align in your work. The stitches are not equal, and that's why you need to make sure that you align your work with the stitch markers so that you place your hood perfectly. So I've marked one of the corners. I'll get another stitch marker and mark another corner just like that, and then I'll get my yarn and the darning needle and continue connecting to the end. So now I'm just coming to the end and I'm attaching the last stitches. In the last stitch, just pull the stitch marker out and join that stitch with the corner, then make a knot. And after that, we're just going to weave in the end that has remained inside the stitches just to hide it and make sure that our work is secure. So go on within the end and cut off whatever remains. So once you're satisfied that it is well hidden, that is when you cut off the yarn. So now I'll just cut off the yarn and I'm done attaching the hood. And this is what we have so far. It is perfectly secured in place, as you can see, and our work is looking awesome so far. I love how this is going. So next we're going to work the sleeves, and we're going to work 2 sleeves and attach them, one on this side and one on the other side. I've already worked one of the sleeves, and this is what I have. As you can see, I have 3 squares of 3 different sizes. The first one has 6 rows, the second one has 7, the third one has 8, and then I have 2 rows. One row has the smaller squares, the next one has the medium size, and the last one has the large size. So we're going to need to work 6 squares, 2 of the squares with 8 rows, the other 2 with 7 rows, and the other 2 with 6 rows. I hope you're getting that. So now go on, work your squares. You need to work a total of 6 plus 6, that is 12 squares. And then now we're going to join them. We're going to join from the 2 big squares that have 8 rows each. And you already know how to do the connection. So connecting these first 2 should be easy. I'm going to connect them, then come back and show you how to connect the next squares. I'm done connecting those 2 squares, and I'll just get the next size of our squares, the one with 7 rows. We have 2 extra stitches on this side and 2 extra stitches on the other side, so we need to reduce 4 stitches. So what we do is start at the corner and at the corner on the other side and make a knot. Then I'm going to get the first double crochet on this side and the first double crochet on the other side, connect them. So I'm going to connect for 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. Next we're going to go to the 5th on the large square and the 4th. So we're going back into the 4th stitch of the smaller square, so that we've done the first reduction. Then we're going to work another 4 stitches, so that is 1, 2, 3 and 4. Then we're going to go into the 5th, then back into the 4th on the smaller square. I hope that is making sense. That is our second reduction. Then we're going to work 1, 2, 3 and 4. Then we go into the 5th on the large square and the 4th on the smaller square to work the third reduction. Then we're going to work 4 squares again, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Then the 5th square, the 5th stitch and the 4th stitch on the smaller square, do a 4th reduction. So now the stitches that are remaining on this end should be the same number of stitches. So now from here until we get to the corner, we're just going to attach 1 stitch to the other, because we've already done the 4 reductions. So just go on and attach the corresponding stitches till you get to the corner now. Once you get to the corner, just do the knot and weave in that end that has remained. So I'll just go on with the end on the jungle green side. Next we get the 4th square, and this should be the same size as the third square. That is, we need to do a reduction, and we're going to work from the second large square. We've worked on the first large square, we're going to work on the second one, and we want to do a reduction, and we're going to work the reduction the same way we worked with the other one. Start at the corner, make sure that you're working on the wrong side of the square, and then we're going to make a knot right there, and then make sure that the knot is tight. We start on the first double crochet on this side and the first double crochet on the other side, sew them together, the second double crochet. As you can see, I'm weaving that end as I go. That is the second. We go into the third stitches, then we're going to go into the fourth stitch and the fourth on the other side, and after that we're going to do a reduction. So we go onto the fifth on this side, then back onto the fourth on the other square, and that's our first reduction. Then we start again, we count in 1, then 2, then 3, and then we're going to have 4. After the fourth we reduce, so the fifth and the fourth on the other square. So that's the second reduction. Then again we work 1 and 2, then we have 3 and 4. So 5 and 4th we do a third reduction. Then again we're going to work join 4 stitches before reducing for the 4th time. So that's 1, 2, 3 and 4. Then we're going to do the 4th reduction. Like I mentioned, the bigger square has 4 extra stitches and we've already reduced them, so the ones that are remaining should be the same number on both squares. And now we're just going to attach 1 stitch to 1 stitch on the other side until we get to the corner. Once we get to the corner, we're going to do a knot. So make sure that you do a knot right there. Then on the opposite triangles, do another knot. And then we're going to weave in that end. You can still continue and work with this yarn to the bottom, but I want to use the cream white for that connection. So I'm just weaving in the jungle green, and then I'll cut off that end that has remained. Then I'll grab my cream white yarn, and the reason why I'm changing to cream white is because the next square that I'm going to join will be in this color. So connect that at the corner of those 2 squares. Now the 2 squares in our second row have the same number of stitches, and therefore we are not working any reduction. We're just going to join 1 stitch with 1 stitch all the way till we get to the corner. So let me attach this, and then I'll meet you at the corner so that we can work the next row, or so that we can attach the next square. I have the square joined, and now we're going to work the third row, and the third row is with the smallest square, and I'm getting that cream white square, placing it right there. Then I'll just connect at that corner, start with a knot so that we have that corner sitting perfectly. And from the second square to the third, there's a reduction that we're going to work because the second square is bigger than the third. So we're just going to reduce the same way we were doing. So that's 2, 3, then I'll work a 4th stitch, and then next I'm going to work the 5th and the 4th for that first reduction. So then I'll do 4 connections. 1, then we have 2, then we're going to have 3, and then 4, Then next I'm going to go into the 5th and back into the 4th. That's the second reduction. Then I'm going to work 1 and 2, then we have 3, and I'm going to work over that end that is over there, so that is 3. Then I'm going to work the 4th stitch, then the 5th in the green will go to the 4th in the white, and that will be our 3rd reduction. So that's the 3rd. Now we start again, all over again. 1, next we're going to have 2 and 3, then we have the 4th one, and now for the 5th on the green, it goes to the 4th on the white for that 4th reduction. Now the stitches that are remaining should be the same number, and we're just going to connect each of the corresponding stitches till we get to the corner. I'm done attaching that square, and we're going to do the last one, beginning with the attachment on the top because we need to do the reduction. So start with the corner and make a knot. By now you already know how to reduce, so go on, connect your last square, and I'll meet you once I'm done with this. So let me do that and then come back so that we can then go on to attach the sleeve. Remember, this is our second sleeve. I've already done the first one, so you're going to do 2 of these, and then we're going to attach them to the main sweater. Once we get to the corner, we do the knot, and because those 2 squares, the last connection, the 2 squares are the same, or they are the same, they have the same number of stitches, we're just going to connect 1 stitch to 1 stitch. I'm done with the 3 rows of the sleeve, and this is what we have. So when it folds, that's what we're going to have. So now it's time to attach it. Or if you've not done the second sleeve, go on, work the second sleeve, and then we're going to attach them to the sweater. You want to do this on the wrong side of your sweater, so just turn it like that, get to the wrong side, and then we're going to get one of the sleeves, and make sure that you identify the joining part on the shoulder because that's where we're going to start at. We're going to mark that part so that we know how we're going to align our work. Now we're going to get the middle of the sleeve, that is the point in between the 2 squares. We are attaching from the bigger side, so get the side that had the squares that had 8 rows, and then get the middle part and the middle part on the shoulders and pin them together like that. Then we're going to get the corners of these 2 squares, the corners of the square on the sleeve and the corner of the square on the sweater. My squares had 6 rows, but because of the extension that I did on the top, then they are going to align very well with the squares. So I'm supposed to connect from one end to the other, so on that line. Then we just go onto the other side and pin the other sleeve. I'll show you how to connect one of the sleeves, then I'll do the other one offline because it's basically the same thing. So just get a stitch marker and mark at that point on the shoulders for the second sleeve, and then join that part with the middle part of the sleeve. Ensure that you're connecting on the side that is wide. So the wider part of the sleeve goes to the armhole, or to the armhole, and then joining the corners of those 2 squares. Then after that, I'll just get the darning needle and connect or sew everything together. You already know how to do this. Like I mentioned, you don't have to use the needle, you can use the hook, provided you're aligning your work correctly. Get that first corner and go through the corner on the sweater and the corner on the sleeve, and we're going to make a knot, a tight knot. So make that knot and then we start joining. So start joining the stitches. There's a point where we have rows and the rows will still go with the stitches. So at this point you just sew everything together. So let me do that. Meet you at the other end. I'm coming to the end and I'm just joining the last double crochets, and then after that I'll join the corners. So at that corner do the knot, tighten, and then weave in the end. I'm done with that sleeve on that one side, and this is what we have. So now I'll just turn to the other side and attach the other sleeve. I'll do this off camera, then come back. So now this is the part that I'm joining from the wrist all the way through the armpits, all the way down to the bottom of the sweater. And because the squares are the same size, it means that each of the stitches will be joined to the corresponding stitch on the other side. So I'll just start at the wrist of one of the sleeves and do a knot, then another one. And now because you already know how to join the stitches, just go to the first double crochet and the first double crochet on the other side. I feel like I'm repeating myself too much. I hope this is not too much and you're okay with it. If you're enjoying the tutorial and you're not subscribed, kindly subscribe and join the family. If you like the tutorial, leave a like, leave a comment, share with your friends, and if you get to recreate this, kindly do not forget to tag me on Instagram. I'll be reposting your work on my stories. So now just keep going with the joining all the way through the armpits to the bottom of the sweater, and I'll meet you there. Then I'll go ahead and join the other sleeve off camera before I come back. At this point, I'm done attaching both of my sleeves, and this is what we have. So now the only thing that is remaining is to do a ribbon, and to do the ribbing, you need to turn your sweater to the wrong side. So just turn it, not to the wrong side, but to the right side. We were attaching on the wrong side, so just turn it to the right side. And we need to do the ribbing on the wrists, on the waist, and on the hood. I'm going to stop right here. So this is the end of part 1 of making this sweater, and I'll be doing the ribbing for the wrist, for the waist, and for the hood in the next video. See you in the next video.